Hey everybody, Lieutenant Joe Pangaro here for the Blue Heart Podcast. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a crime scene and what you need to understand about a crime scene, how to handle the crime scene, and how to process and document it. All right, so first of all, our sponsors, Blue 360 Media, greatest publisher ever, RiotTint.com. They provide window safety covers. It's amazing, keeps people from breaking through the glass and getting in and hurting people. And Medical Essential Diagnostics, where you can go with two adult family members and you can get a complete screening at no cost to you. They have 5 different locations in New Jersey, and they are excellent sponsors of law enforcement. They believe in law enforcement. They're big supporters, all of our sponsors. So let's think about a crime scene. This will be crime scene part 1 probably, because it's not a simple thing. So in my book, The Investigation, right, that you can get from Blue 360 Media. Part of what we did in this book is we tell the story of a very brutal double homicide that I investigated. And I break it down in story form. I tell you how the bad guy went from point A to point B. And then I say, if you're the investigator, how do you go back and track him? How would you know where he was moving? Then I go to the crime scene. We actually killed people. He did some horrible things to them. And then I stop and go back and tell you what to do in the crime scene and what you should look for, that kind of thing. And then we talk about the end and how he went to trial, and it was a crazy trial and all that. And then how to prepare for a major case. All right, so when it gets to the crime scene, let's talk as a patrol officer now. Now, I know in most police agencies, patrol officers do not get a lot of training. You get what's left over. You get what they what's for eat free at the police academy or whatever. And that's where I think we go wrong as an agency. Our patrol officers are the backbone of our law enforcement agency. You are the eyes and ears out on the street, flipping people. We're going to talk all about flipping informants and all that in other episodes. But for right now, that crime scene. So let's take a basic crime scene. You get called to a house burglary. The family went out, they come back in the afternoon for their day, and their back door is shoved in and their property is missing. They have jewelry missing. People ransack the house. And you get there. Your crime scene, where does it start? Well, your crime scene starts at the first place you think the suspect might have been. Did they come through the woods? Then you have to go look out in those woods and see if they left any telltale signs of being there. Did they pull up in a car? Did any of the neighbors see a strange car? Did anybody see anybody in the area? All right, so your crime scene, here's a good rule of thumb for a crime scene. Whatever you think your crime scene is, double it at a minimum, because the rule is this: you can always give up ground. You can't take more ground once you already started your investigation, because now people are walking by, they're showing up. It depends on your crime. You might have a news crew show up or other people show up. Looky-loos are all around. So whatever you think it is, double it. With a house burglary, I would double it, and I would say all around the house, a couple of neighbors houses around would be where I would start, and you would send somebody over there. Hey, go start knocking on doors, see if anybody saw anything. Well, you look at the house. So in the book, when we talk about the crime scene, this was a double homicide where a guy killed his 88-year-old grandmother and the mother of his child, who was 31 years old. He stabbed the girlfriend multiple times, and then he cut their head, hands, and feet off. It was a really crazy, bizarre crime. But it was in a house. So what did we do? We initially said, you know what? We don't know where this person came from. We don't know what he did. Did he have evidence? Did he have other people? We took the entire neighborhood, and we had a Johnny on the spot patrol sergeant who was brilliant, and he started shutting down the neighborhood and stationing officers all around. So we had this giant crime scene. And then we began working our way and looking in the storm drains for evidence, looking for, running all the cars. Whose cars are these? Why are these cars there? And as it turned out, after our initial review of that big crime scene, there was a car that belonged to the suspect who was parked 3 or 4 doors down from the crime scene. He parked there purposely so that nobody would see him going into the house. So that was a great move by the Sarge. So when you get there as the patrol officer and you see this crime scene, you want to remember, every time we go into a scene, we bring stuff with us that we leave there. And every time we come out of the crime scene, we take stuff with us: microfibers, hairs, blood spatter, all kinds of stuff. So when you're at this crime scene, you want to, glove up, especially if there's been injuries and people are hurt. Best of all worlds, if it's a homicide, you would have, you're doing the initial sweep because you don't know it till you go in there, right? Sometimes we get a call, oh my gosh, I heard a fight. You go in, then you find dead people. In the case of the story in my book, that's exactly what happened. We got a call that there were dead bodies in the house, and the patrol sergeant and another street officer ended up getting to the house and going in and finding the two bodies. Then they swept the house for victims and for suspects. Then they came out and they locked the doors down. Hey, this is it. We're freezing this crime scene. So you want to kind of think of everything you touch and everything you do in that crime scene is going to make a difference. Now, it's okay if you have to go in and do that. Sometimes we have to go in and do what? Go in and do first aid on somebody who ends up dying. Well, you don't touch them, right? You don't touch them anymore. Once you've done what you've done and somebody says that's it, they're dead, you're going to leave all the first aid equipment, everything right on them for the medical examiner to look at, and we can document who was in that crime scene, whose fingerprints were there, whose boot prints, anything like that. So you go in, and here's one that you might come across a lot is you might get called to a hanging or a suicide. Now, we got to be really, really careful. All right. If there's a gun in the scene and people call up, oh my gosh, my husband killed himself. I think he's dead. My father, my sister, my mother, whatever. And you walk in and there's nobody else there but the caller and the deceased, right? You want to maybe get that deceased out of that scene. If there is a gun there and it's not in a position where someone can get to it and touch it, accidentally shoot it, then you might want to leave it there. If there are people running all around and you feel you have to make that gun safe, you have to document it, put on gloves, make the gun safe, and then leave it there. You're going to document where you found it, where you picked it up from, right? Because a lot of times we don't do that. We take photographs and then somebody moved something and then you see it in the next picture and it's moved. So what you want to do is talk to your investigators and see what would they want you to do if they went into a scene and there was all kinds of people there and there was a gun on the floor, right? Most times you're best off if it's safe, don't touch it, right? Leave the scene pristine. That's the saying you should have. Leave the scene pristine, right? So as the investigator, when you get there now, we know that we have to secure that crime scene. Depending on your state, and you have to check this and make sure, does your state, your county prosecutor, district attorney, do they demand that you have a search warrant? Like you go in for the initial call, you find this crime scene, obviously people are dead. Do they expect you to back out and now get a search warrant to go back in, right? Some places say, no, once you're there, you have a right to be there. What you can see, you can do. Many states want you to have a search warrant. So make sure you understand that. Should you get a search warrant before you go back in? If you're a smaller agency and you're going to be handling this, you're going to be calling for the state police or the county police, how long till they get there? You need to think about these things in advance. All right, so one of the things that you're going to do is when you secure that crime scene, you want to start a log, a crime scene log, right? You're going to put up tape, secure that off so nobody comes and goes. Don't let anybody else in there unless, of course, they have more authority than you and they're going to go into the building. But start a log, the date, the time, who you are, where you're positioned, and who's coming and going out of that crime scene. Very, very important. All right. So when we go in there, we can find lots of things. Now, I do a criminal investigation course. And one of the things that I look at is case studies. And I look at the John Bonet murder from, back in 1996, I think it was. And part of that is crime scene photo and videos. And right on the kitchen table of the family's house is a big old mag light. Now, immediately you look at that and go, don't cops carry mag lights? That officer put that right on the table and left it there and walked away. Now you have a piece of police equipment in the crime scene and you have to explain all of these things. So keep the scene pristine is the key. All right. So keep that in mind. If you come upon a crime scene, try to not disturb it. Try and understand what it is. Help your victims first. If you realize that people are deceased, then, back out of there. Make sure there's no bad guys or girls in there. Make sure there's no other victims, and then back out of there and secure that scene. So crime scenes, very, very important. It's something we touch on in the investigation. You should get the book. It would really, really be helpful for you. All right, everybody, listen, be careful out there and do a great job.